I found this quote from the Iti-Vuttaka, collected sayings of the Buddha that Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi put together in his book on community. Right? Monastics, householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms food, lodgings, and medicines in times of sickness. And you monastics are very helpful to householders, as you teach them the Dharma that is good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, and with the right meaning and wording, and you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment and complete purity. Thus, monastics, the spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of suffering. So that's the purpose of this mutual support. And Venerable Chudran announced today for our Exploring Monastic Life program, although the people online didn't hear this, that a family from Malaysia has offered lunch dana for the entire course for Exploring Monastic Life. And then when they told their friends about that, another group decided to extend that lunch dana for some months to support the community over a period of time. And then here's Sarah, our friend who's making our lunch today, a layperson kindly coming to cook for us for a few days. The support we receive at Sravasti Abbey is unbelievable. And so I wanted to talk about that and what it means for me. So the thought that's been in my head all morning, Graham Nash released this single in 1971. The lyrics, which include, "We can change the world, rearrange the world. It's dying to get better." Well, I believed this. That was very much a part of my ethic in 1971 when this came out. And of course, what did I think it meant to change the world? How to do it? I don't know. Something fair, something free, we change it to that. Did it have anything to do with ethics? No, that was for Jerry Falwell and the moral majority. And we, they were staid and boring people who were way out of step. And so, the motivation at that time was like, powerful stories told well can change the minds of people. Beautiful songs that tell the truth can change the minds of people, and that's how we'll change the world. And I believed that for decades, almost, decades, a long time. And the world changed. In some ways good, in some ways not so good, not the way I thought. And not a single performance I was involved in, not a single work of art I was involved in was a part of that positive change, I'm pretty sure. So I thought, okay, then I learned something else is different. Changing the world is about healing the world. It's about healing the broken hearts, healing the wrong way of seeing things that leads to all the isms. We'll heal racism, we'll heal sexism, we'll heal heterosexism, we'll heal capitalism that causes so much pain and suffering. Ethics, yes, for the government, yes, for corporations. Personally, I'm a good person. And then I met the Dharma. So, and I especially love the teachings on bodhicitta and developing love and compassion and, change the world that way. Really the path to change the world and rearrange the world. And then I had to look at ethics, right? So that I realized that the ethics of non-harming were actually all about personal choices and how I behaved personally, not externally. So I had to learn that not to kill anything, not to take anything that wasn't freely given. I'd already stopped taking lovers as trophies, and I had already stopped drinking, so those two things were okay. But stopped lying, I was shocked to discover that lying precept was the hardest one for me to keep in the beginning. So how I made the leap from monastic life, from there to monastic life is another very long story, and it's not worth the telling. But it was a long time, really after I was ordained, before I really learned that in some contexts, the term that is translated as the world refers to the 5 aggregates. These 5 aggregates. form, feeling, discrimination, miscellaneous factors. Did I say that in consciousness of this being? So we can change the world, rearrange the world, means I have to change my own mind. And pretty much nothing else. I mean, I can contribute to creating outer change, but that's not nearly as important to making the inner changes. And so I'm the venerable harmonizer that Venerable referred to this morning, who likes to control everything but my own mind. Changing old habits, and for me especially looking outside the world for validation, is very, very hard to do. Really hard to change that orientation. And in some ways, living a monastic life and living simply and keeping precepts and wrestling with an arrogant, willful, and easily discouraged mind is the best possible thing I can do in my good-hearted wish to benefit the world out there. And alone in the world, no one would support my practice. Truthfully. I mean, most days, frankly, it's hardly worth support. And I'm not being self-denigrating in that some days. But living with a whole group of people who live in ethical precepts and who are dedicating to practicing virtue and who share these teachings with other people who also don't feel so worthy sometimes, that's a value that can really help so much. And I saw this so clearly in the last year and a half during COVID. I mean, I was convinced of it by the time I came to live here, but over the course of time, seeing, as Venerable was teaching this morning, how important it is for people to know that there is a place where people are at least trying to keep ethical conduct. I mean, they are keeping ethical conduct, where people are holding precepts, where people are doing their best to cultivate love and compassion, is inspiring for people. And that is meaningful, and that's something I can contribute to, especially if I pay attention to my motivation. So as the pandemic took hold and more people were tuning into, we had the resources here to put stuff online. People, I mean, hundreds of people that we would never have been able to fit into this room were showing up for teachings and looking for support. And what they did in return was they also made offerings. We have lived so well during the pandemic time. Sometimes I felt a little bit guilty about it, but I know guilt is also not a useful mind. But I have to really think about doing thy practice to be worthy of these offerings. And Venerable, I'm going to quote from what she said this morning. She said, our life is about serving the Dharma. And we serve the Dharma by serving the Sangha. Because the Sangha doesn't exist in isolation, and everyone contributes, and everyone has a different way of doing it. And we need all the different ways of doing it to make this happen. The monastery's function depends equally on the people who wash the dishes and pull the knapweed. If you don't have people doing all the different functions, then you can spread the Dharma. Every function is needed. So this is something I can offer. This can be my practice. When my mind is wild, when my mouth is embarrassingly out of control, I can still show up for practice. I can still show up to do my tasks. I can take over when somebody else is sick. I can step in when I see that somebody needs help. Our monastic life isn't clocking in to do our chores. Our monastic life is not clocking in to do our chores. Our monastic life is not clocking in to see if my study time got transgressed because somebody had an extra issue down there and needed to have me pull more knapweed than I was willing to do. We don't come here to clock in. It's a way of life. We live together. We support each other. We grow our good qualities to the best of our abilities. We try to transform the destructive ones to the best of our abilities. We support each other to do that. And the training is to simply live our lives together in a way that supports that, and we share the Dharma with others. And so I want to thank our lay people. I want to thank the people who've offered lunch, Donna. I want to thank Sarah. I want to thank the people who show up here to help us cut down the trees, who out of faith, who with their own hearts, so wanting to support the Dharma and grow in their own minds, they support us and me personally. I take it personally. And I want to know, I want you to know, I'm saying this to the lay people, when my mind is discouraged and the going gets tough, you are the outside influence that keeps me going. When there are times when I think I will never make it, blah, 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 I know that because of your support, that's a kindness I wish to pay. It's not an obligation. It's a contract I've already made with you. And you fulfill it so fully that together, we really will do what the Buddha says in this quote. And I promise, among all the other things, that I will not destroy your faith by giving up what I have promised to do. Monastics, he said, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood of samsara, and making a complete end of suffering. That's why we're all in this together. And all of us here are in this together. When we begin at the monastery, or we begin with our ordained life, this isn't so clear. But by living in community, and hopefully by having examples where people do show up, where people do follow the schedule, where people do fill in for your dishes, where people aren't clocking in on their offering service time, to show that our training is to live together to fulfill this. That's the real jewel of preciousness of Dharma life, and the opportunity that we have here, all the causes and conditions that have created this place, which is so unique. I can't begin to repay in this life. But I'm doing my best. I'll keep coming back to the best of my ability. And yeah, until we're all awakened together. So.